The Iceman was not alone. DNA reveals lost tribes in the mountains. Otzi, the Iceman, was one of the most important archaeological finds of the 20th century. Discovered in the Italian Alps in 1991, his exceptionally preserved body provided unprecedented insights into the Copper Age. Since then, scientists have analyzed every inch of Otzi's body, hoping to learn more about who he was and how he lived. And now, a new genetic study has revealed that Otzi was not an isolated individual, but rather part of a lost tribe living high in the mountains. Hi, it's me, number 4. Otzi, the Iceman. In 1991, 2 German tourists stumbled upon a frozen human body on the border of Italy and Austria in the Ortler Alps. They immediately reported their discovery, and soon archaeologists were on the scene carefully excavating the ice to recover the body. They named him Otzi, short for Wetzi, after the nearby Ötztal Valley. And almost immediately, scientists began to study him because his body was so well preserved. Not only did he still have most of his organs, including his brain, but his clothes, equipment, and even the bacteria in his stomach were still intact. It was later determined that Otzi died around 3,300 years ago from an arrow wound to the shoulder. But because his body was found so well preserved, scientists have been able to learn all kinds of things about him that they never could have imagined when he was first discovered. For example, by carefully analyzing the layers of dirt and pollen on his clothes, scientists were able to reconstruct his last days, showing that he spent his final week at an altitude of over 8,000 feet near a lake called Tiso. In fact, pollen from plants that only grow at such high elevations was found on his clothes and body, suggesting that he spent his entire life there. But what's really interesting is that the genetic study published in the journal Nature this week suggests that Otis was not alone. When studying ancient DNA, scientists often use something called a principal component analysis to see how individuals are related to one another based on their DNA. This type of analysis compares certain regions of the genome, known as single nucleotide polymorphisms, or SNPs. By comparing SNPs, researchers can determine the degree of genetic similarity between individuals. So they took this approach to compare Otzi's DNA to other ancient humans from the same time period and region, as well as modern Europeans. What they found was that Otzi was genetically distinct from other Copper Age Europeans, showing more similarities to later European populations from about 2,000 years ago. Based on these results, the researchers believe that Otzi belonged to a previously unknown group of early European farmers. They named this group after the mountains where Otzi's remains were found, the Ortler people. But that's not all. The researchers also found that the Ortler people were not just living in the Italian Alps, but across much of Europe, from the British Isles to Turkey. Although we don't know exactly how widespread they were, it's clear that they were a large group of people who played a significant role in the prehistory of Europe. So why did they disappear? The researchers speculate that as larger groups of early farmers migrated into Europe around 7,000 years ago, they either absorbed the Ortler people into their communities or forced them to flee into the mountains. There, they would have survived by raising livestock, hunting wild animals, and gathering plants. Eventually, though, their way of life would have become increasingly difficult as the climate changed and the forests grew denser. By 3000 BC, most of the Ortler people would have likely died out, with only a few isolated groups clinging to survival in the highest and most remote places. And it was probably in one of these pockets that Otzi lived out his short life. What do you think? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe for more stories like these. The study was published in the journal Nature. If you want to learn more about Otzi the Iceman, I've linked to some great resources in the description. As always, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.